Hey, good afternoon to everyone, and especially to our guest speakers, Sibusiso and Kumania. It's so awesome that you are joining us today. And a lot of people have requested a presentation on this topic, so we are super chuffed that you're here. Thank you so much. I'm going to quickly share my screen so we can just see what will be happening. Right, so thank you. We're going to be speaking about land reform, something which a lot of people are not sure how to approach, and I'm sure that you're going to give us a lot of insight today. So just for everyone who is joining the webinar, we'd like to request that you please keep your yourself muted and your videos off, preferably, please. It just helps with your streaming. And there is a chat. If you can find your chat, you're welcome to ask questions, which we can refer to then at the end, or Sips could perhaps answer while he's busy speaking. The chat is also then saved afterwards. It helps us to see what kind of questions are asked and things like that. Then we're just expecting Jackie to join us. She's going to quickly tell you all about the brand new prep share. We're super excited. She spent hours trying to sort that out so that it's easier to access, easier to find, and we're really excited. She sent an email this morning and she's just going to speak about that. And then Sid is going to do his presentation for us. Please don't leave too soon, because we actually do have a quiz and a book prize, which we are very excited about. And we're actually going to give you till Monday to answer these questions if you're not quite sure what the answers are. Pam has been quite difficult with some of those questions, I'm not going to lie. Okay, so that is at the end. The book you can win is this awesome book, Land Matters, and I will post the link for you in the chat at the end, where you can just save it and then do it at your own time. So you have until Monday, 2 August, to complete that. And we are certainly looking forward to see if anyone can get full marks for that. Right, Jackie's not here yet. I think what I would then do is I'm going to just put up the prep share for her so that when she gets in, she will be able to just talk about that. But please, for everyone who's watching, the SAGTA website, you should know it very, very well. And if you look along the top here, a lot of stuff has been revamped. We're very excited about that. The GeoMen thing has been put up there. And if you click on Prep Share, you kind of need to be logged in though, please. And that's why we do ask that you are a member of SAGTA to be able to access this. Jackie, are you here yet? No. Okay. She would like to explain to you what she's done here. Otherwise, Pam, maybe we should just continue and do this at the end.
I think that would be absolutely fine.
Okay, I think that might be the best idea, because I don't want to take away all her hard work. She can rather explain it to everyone.
Let her present.
Thanks, Pam. Would you like to introduce it for everyone quickly?
Ineke, are we starting with me?
Yes, we're going to start now. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I was just moving desks. I'll be with you shortly. If you can just give me 1 second.
Not a problem. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hope everyone's found the chat as well. Let me just put a question, comment in there so you can find your chat if you haven't yet. That's where we'll put the link for your quiz as well. Right. So everyone's, it's lovely talking to a class and then no one is there to look at you, hey? Oh my word. Right, so Jackie Fatkan, so just moving his desk quickly.
Right, I'm back.
Are you back? Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
You guys can let me know when I can start. I think I'm ready.
You are welcome. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to it. Would you introduce yourself, everyone, please, so that they know where you teach and what you do?
Okay, right. Guys, my name is Sibusiso Ngamani. I think most people refer to me as Sibs. I'm teaching at Michael House. I've been here for quite a while. I sometimes feel like I'm part of the furniture. It scares me sometimes when people come up to ask me for my opinion on some sort of decision to be made, because I still see myself as a junior teacher in this school. So I've been here for quite a while. I've been teaching geography. I did teach a little bit of history at the beginning, but I've since focused only on teaching geography. I love it, and I've met amazing people, especially the IEP teachers, through marking, through various conferences. In fact, some of you guys, I've known you guys for a long, long time. And what was very nice at the beginning of my career was the warmth and the welcome feel that I received from many of you. And that is partly why I enjoy going to marking and going to conferences. It's a pity that we no longer do that because there was a great deal of insight that one received or got from, especially the conferences that we organized. I can remember the conference that was at Bishop's a while ago. I can remember going to also at some stage. I think that conference was at school down in Teniqua or George. I can't remember the name of the school. So yeah, so there's a lot of insight from those, such that I'm here today. I never thought one day I'll do this, guys. So I'm not sure how I feel exactly about this, but we'll go with it. You know what? I thought, guys, before I get started, please feel free to it was nice now, indeed. Please feel free to ask questions along the way. I am definitely not an expert in this field, but I do share an opinion, and I've done a little bit of reading up, partly just to make sure that we give a better product to, in my case, the boys that I teach, but to the learners that we encounter. So I know that there is a feeling that this section is, I'm gonna start sharing my screen in a moment. I think there is a feeling that this is quite a difficult task to teach. Please let me know if you can see what I'm doing. I have not used Zoom in a while. So I'm gonna share that. Where am I? So, right, there you go. Enike, is that all right?
That's perfect, thank you.
Okay, super. Then I'm gonna start from there. So guys, I think just from the beginning, I thought this topic, it seemed from what I've heard anyway, it seemed like it is either that cousin or that uncle that we don't really want to have anything to do with, but that uncle or that cousin, from time to time, they will pop up at a family function or at something of that nature. And it kind of just ruins everybody's mood, that kind of vibe. So it is, I think it's quite a fascinating topic, given the nature of our country, and I think it should be treated as such. It shouldn't be at any point be treated as if this is an extreme sport. It is not an extreme sport. It is just like any other subject matter. It just needs to be presented in a manner which is informative to the learners that we encounter. You know, so I appreciate that it is quite tricky, but I think, guys, you must imagine what English teachers, drama teachers, and history and visual arts teachers they have to deal with, because for them, these topical issues, which are seemingly or at times sound controversial, they deal with these on a daily basis, you know, so ours is just once in a while, you know, and I think that is partly why I was motivated to try and read up on this topic, so that at least I present a better product to the kids that I encounter. You know, and I think just from the outset again, guys, I'd like just to say to everybody, remember our objective here is to provide a holistic information to the learners that we teach. You know, yes, we must be sensitive in terms of how we approach it. For me, given the nature of my school, we've got a lot of boys whose families own farms. And what I would tend to do at the beginning of a discussion or a conversation is to ask, if there are any boys who own farms, and also if there are any boys who have had their farms under land claims or some sort of a threat, as it were. Because then what it allows me to know exactly who to be sensitive towards to and that kind of stuff. All right. And at the end of the day, though, I don't think I want to shortchange the boys that I teach. It is important to me that I provide an unbiased information, because then it allows them to make informed opinions on the subject matter. Right, guys, so I chose that photo deliberately, and I think just by looking at that photo, you can pretty much formulate an essay, you know, just looking at it, because it is exactly the picture that we have in this country when it comes to landform at the moment. So what I'm gonna do, guys, I'm just going to provide, as I said, my own way of dealing with this, the way that I've approached it, the way that I've taught it to my classes. So going forward, first of all, so what I've done for the sake of this presentation, I've basically went on the internet and I tried to look up for various books that have been published on the topic of the land issue. And I was deliberate in terms of what books I chose, because there are lots and lots of books. The list of books that have been written on this matter is endless. So what I've done, I was deliberate in terms of what I chose, and for the sake of, again, my presentation, you know, so you can just tell that topic there, guys. This book is written by Lungsil Nsebeza and Ruth Hall, and it's entitled The Land Question in South Africa. And I think it's usually a good start for me whenever I teach this section, because this is a massive question in terms of where we are as a country. And then what I've done is just to give a synopsis of what the book is about, a basic view of what the book is about. And what I've then done in that synopsis of what the book is about is to look for keywords. Okay, so you don't have to read the entire thing, but just look out for the keywords, because they are very much part of the discussion that we are trying to achieve. Okay, so if you look at that, this book, the keywords that I've highlighted is the dispossession. Okay, so the word dispossession comes around very frequently in these discussions. Okay, and it also goes on to talk about how can we reverse the so-called apartheid legacy. In the process, how can we then transform our economy to make sure that there's sort of an equity when it comes to distribution of the land, as well as just the ownership when it comes to economy, because land is very much part of our economy. It does this particular summary. It does finish off by saying that there has been a limited headway in the first decade of South Africa's democracy. Yes, that is part of an argument, which I think it helps make the conversation far more enriching for the kids, because then the kids need to be told why there has been the perceived limited headway in the process of the land reform programs. You know, so that's the first book that I would put up. And as I said, I've highlighted those keywords, and I would talk about that with the kids that I teach to try and understand their meaning when it comes to this section. Okay, and then I will move on to my next slide, if technology would allow me. Right, the next one. I like the heading again. It talks about the land divided, land restored, and I will then focus on the first part. Land divided. The land question in South Africa has caused a great deal of division. The way we view the subject of land ownership, the land distribution, the land the land reform programs, we are very divided in our view. And I think that's probably just the nature of how things are in this country, you know, so we're never going to be in agreement. And what the children need to understand is how can they make an informed opinion before they take sides on the matter, you know. So our role as teachers here, guys, then is to provide the kids that we teach space where they can make informed decision, you know. Then you see that again, land dispossessions comes up on this book, and on that summary, and the spatial segregation as well. So these terms, they give you as a teacher an opportunity to describe or explain the impact. For example, you can go on and talk about what was spatial segregation like from, let's say, from 1913 onwards. You know, it then gives the kids a clear picture of where we come from as a country. Okay. Then moving right along, this one is obviously, this is a far more familiar concept to the kids. The land expropriation without compensation is what has been spoken about in the last 5 years, you know, and we know who's at the forefront of this conversation from a political point of view. And then again, it's important for us not to shy away from these conversations with the learners that we teach, you know, because it helps them understand better, okay? And then this book goes on to highlight some of the issues that are burning when it comes to this whole topic of land reform. So there's a lot of talk around corruption. Again, as a teacher, as an adult in the room, you have a fairly good idea of what it means by the word corruption, you know. So what are some of the examples that have been identified that relate to corruption when it comes to the matter of the land reforms, okay? We talk about the farm murderers, and I think obviously as sad as this is, it's again one of those conversations that we need to face head on as teachers. And I sometimes say to the kids, guys, we need to isolate farm murderers from an ordinary crime, you know. So I think sometimes the media, the way the media portrays some of these stories, it doesn't really give the readers or people that that is trying to reach out to the full picture, you know. As I'm not by any means saying that any murder is a murder, you know, as I'm very sensitive towards that, but I think sometimes the way the media put these things out there, it can leave people very confused, and it can be misleading at times. There's a whole talk around illegal foreign labor because they are seen as cheaper, more willing to work, but then the other underlying factor or outcome from that is that it leads to xenophobia, which we've seen. And then you can also talk about the impact of mechanization and the word eviction. What does eviction means? You know, so where does it come from and how long has the eviction been around? Because it may seem as if it's something that has just happened in the last 30 years. But if you go back to history and look at the laws that were put in place, evictions happened many years before 1994. So that's what I would look at initially with the boys that I teach, because then it kind of puts them in some sort of it gives them a better picture of where we're going, and it gives a nice background to the whole concept going forward. I think it is important for us to understand that our role here is to give a holistic picture for the learners that we teach. Thankfully, I did a little bit of history at school, and I am a little bit familiar with some of the concepts that are before us here. So I would go back with the boys and talk about the impact of each of those events that you see. So how was the land ownership and how was the land dispossessed through those different events. So I think it's important that you go back and just you don't have to be a historian, as long as you have some background to what happened as far as land ownership and land dispossession with arrival of the Bantu migration, as it's known in history books. And I would then go and talk about the Cape Colony, so the expansion of the Cape Colony through the 9 frontier wars. You can talk about Sir George Grey, Harry Smith. Makoma was one of the warriors that is mentioned in those frontier wars, as he was trying to defend the land for the Xhosa-speaking people against the colonial expansion under the leadership of the likes of Harry Smith and George Grey, and these guys were sent out by the British Empire to come and conquer parts of South Africa, and through frontier wars, the land was then dispossessed from the Xhosa-speaking people who were there. But then you would have been coming from the Bantu migration, which gives a clear analysis or explanation as to even the Xhosas, how did they end up with the land? How did the Zulu-speaking people end up with the land that they have in the northern parts of South Africa, that kind of stuff. So this helps build up the background for the boys, okay? And then you go to the 1910. What happened with the unification of South Africa? So the unification of South Africa followed the Anglo-Boer War. So I think again that brings a different dimension to the history of this country, because suddenly we had 2 groups of people who, for lack of a better word, came together and basically united against the majority of the country. So suddenly there were new laws that were put in place. The majority of people who were Black at that time were not given opportunities to take part in the parliament or vote. So all of those things, and you can then explain to your learners that that began the segregation, and to some degree demeaning a certain group of people, because they were never given the same freedom, they were never given the same rights when it came to a lot of things, including land ownership. The 1913 Land Act, I normally just give them a brief background of what it meant. And then I end off with how the apartheid government fast-tracked the forced removals with their policies. Okay, so there are a lot of policies, Group Areas Act, the Bantustan policies, all of those things. So at this point, then I've given the kids enough background before I dive into what we actually meant to teach. So yeah, so that's where I would start, guys. And before I continue, any questions? It's too quiet in this room. Are we all good? Can I carry on? Anybody?
We are all good. We just
Okay,
enjoy
perfect.
listening to you.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Right. And then what I thought I will start off then. And by the way, guys, I know that it gets a bit sensitive. Whenever you're unsure about what to pronounce, I think always go back to the Constitution. So I think constitutionally, you can say Black people. If you choose not to, then you can say African people. Maybe that could be one of the things that you probably tiptoe around. I just follow the Constitution, and I don't mind saying that. So just, yeah, for your own freedom, guys, I think you are definitely allowed to say that. So don't think that you're not allowed to say that. So this is my next slide. And I think it brings up a nice discussion, because I would normally say to the learners, okay, guys, the views on land ownership and the value that we place on land ownership, it varies from people to people. There are people who just view land as a place where they want to raise their children, and naturally when they pass on, they hand it over. You know, there is no monetary value attached to it, except that there's a sentimental value. And then there is private ownership, where someone would say, I'm going to develop this piece of land, I'm going to invest some money. One day, when I leave, for whatever reason, if I pass on, I pass on. If I just move on to the next place, then I can sell it and get some returns on my investments. So that is how we view the land ownership. Okay, so it does bring up a nice discussion, because not everybody sees value in terms of monetary when it comes to land ownership. Some people just want a piece of land, and that piece of land is owned by different generations of that family. You know, so I think of myself. I mean, I was brought up in Transkei. In Transkei, in most of our villages, there are no title deeds. You know, but you know that's your home. And what's fascinating about that is that sometimes you don't even know how wide your yard is, you know, so it goes as far as what your eyes want, as far as your own imagination in this instance. So, but then you go to other places where there's a clear demarcation of, this is my farm, or this is my land, it has X amount of hectares or acres, and so on. And then you have people like ourselves, where at home we don't have a title deed, you know, so that's the nature of the land ownership again in this country, where traditionally people didn't really place much monetary value to the land ownership, except that it was a sentimental thing, and people would just pass it on without having to sell the piece of land for money. Right, and then so the next slide, it gets into what we deal with. You know, so obviously you would want to teach your children these definitions, because this is what is examined at the end of the day. So I'm sure, I think there was a list of the glossary list that was sent around. It has all the definitions, so I'm not going to spend much time on this, okay? But essentially, under land reform, you need to understand, make sure that your children do understand all those concepts and what they mean in reality, you know, so, and then moving right along. And then what I would then do is to teach the kids that I encounter, the objectives, in my view, the objectives of what the land reform programs. Why is the land distribution an important subject when it comes to the socio-economic structure of this country? So in my opinion, I think those are the things that also, again, linked to what we are teaching in classes. These are the things that I believe will be achieved, or objectives of the land reform program. So yes, it is about the equitable distribution and ownership of the land, you know, so you can go on and on to explain that. Yes, if land ownership also does contribute towards the economic growth of the country through commercial farming, etc. Not necessarily commercial farming, but you can go to ecotourism. You can talk about just tourism in its own right, all that kind of stuff, how it contributes to the economic growth, and also it's about food security, you know, so these concepts we cover as part of our syllabus. All right. And then, so this is where I then spend a bit of time as well, where now I say to the boys, so let's look at some of the challenges that are facing land reform in this country. you know. So in terms of politics, some of my views as to why the politics are an issue when it comes to the fast tracking of this is that politicians make empty promises because all they're gunning for is a vote. They will stay in parliament, and then for 5 years, they pretty much don't do as much as they promised, and that then stalls the whole process, you know. So, and usually from what we've seen, there is no natural progression from the previous, let's say, the government to the one that takes over the follow up in the next tenure, and you always feel like they're starting all over again. So that leads to waste of resources. It leads to waste of money, time, and then it increases frustrations to those who are in anticipation of the land. And then again, the policies that are made, there are always winners and losers. I recently listened to a conversation between Julius Malema and I forget his first name. I think it's Clem Santa. I think he's an economist. The guy is an economist, and the debate was very fascinating. You know, so in that debate, in fact, Julius raised a point where he said, if we are going to make a policy where there is, we're talking about, trying to think of the wording that he used, where we're talking about the willing seller, willing buyer process. He said, we'll never achieve what we want to achieve with the land reform programs. Because his argument was, if there's no willing seller, no matter how much you're willing to buy, if there's nobody willing to sell their land, you cannot buy, because there's nobody who's selling that piece of land. And therefore, he was basically justifying his own policy on land expropriation without compensation. You know, so he was saying that it stems from there. Again, these kind of policies, you're always going to have those who favor the policies and those who do not favor the policies. So hence I say winners and losers. The whole process, you're going to have people that are happy, and you're going to have people who are not very happy about the whole process, you know. So you can spend a bit of time trying to bring that out for your learners. Corruption is a much spoken about topic. It's in every newspaper, it's in probably every sort of media that there is out there available. Corruption is always one of the major things that are spoken about. I think probably, yeah, kids are well informed. Lack of education, expertise, and experience. So I'm just going to run through these. Lack of funding for the essentials, especially for things such as just your basic tools that you need. You know, the privatization of the land. I normally say what happens is that most of the land is privatized, it's owned privately. It makes it difficult then for some of these expropriation of land to make a fast track process, because some of the owners are not even in the country, you know. So, and by the way, the constitution protects everybody, you know. So we're talking about illegal evictions of people in some cases. So in there, what I normally emphasize to the boys that I teach is that, guys, as much as you hear the whole illegal evictions or illegal occupation of farms, in many cases, those happened in land that has been sitting idle for many years, you know. So land that is being used productively, that land is in most cases, I would say, it's very safe, and except for the land, for the farms that are under the land claims. And then you again explain how the land claims process work, you know. So it's quite a process. It has to be proven that those people, they once lived there, and during their time of their forebearers, basically, people that lived there were evicted illegally, etc. you know, so there's got to be some sort of a concrete proof that they once occupied that particular area, you know. I do talk about the 99-year lease concept. I never understand this concept. I think it's probably one of the most frustrating things around. Yes, it does protect one person on one end, but I mean, I look at a friend of mine speaks about the life expectancy in South Africa. You know, the life expectancy in South Africa is not even, it's probably about 65, 60 to 70 years. And how would one wait for 99 years before they even have a chance, you know, of lobbying for a land claim or land ownership in this case? There's also like a whole thing about overpricing of the land, which the next video tries to look at if we've got a bit of time. So it's 10 past now, and there's competition, also competition against the dumping of overseas products. I always include it here just as part of the discussion as to why it's also quite a challenging factor in terms of agriculture, because then what happens is that some farms now are almost becoming redundant because of that. Okay. So it's 10 past, and I think I'm nearly on my last slide, and there's just a video of the guy, advocate, Waitobi, who wrote the book, the two books, one which was made reference to earlier on. The video is about 8 minutes. I don't know if I should play the whole thing or just play half of it before Jackie also comes in.
Thanks, Sid. I think maybe just a part of it, and then if you don't mind sending me the link, I'll send it out with the glossary next week for everyone to.
Okay, cool. I'll just play for a few minutes. It's 11 past now, and I guess we're looking at ending off at past. Okay.
Thanks.
So I'm just gonna play that. Hopefully the volume is clear.
Then the third thing that the clause does is then to instruct a broad transformation mandate premised on three things, right? So we now know we've got an anti-property clause. We also know that the state is entitled constitutionally to take private property for the benefit of the broader public. And then what the clause does is then to insert these three primary instruments for land reform. One is security of tenure. And again, there is a larger historical story why Black people do not have secure tenure on the land. The second is redistribution. And redistribution is simply based on land need or land hunger, because it requires access to land on an equitable basis. So if you don't have access to land on an equitable basis, the Constitution expressly mandates the state to ensure that that happens. And then the third is what is called restitution. And restitution is confined to those people who can prove claims from the 19th of June, 1913. If you can prove that you were dispossessed after the 19th of June, 1913, which is the date when the Native Land Act came into operation. Again, I talk a lot about the Native Land Act in my book and what it meant, and how it disrupted Black people's lives. But to redress that problem, there was a specific constitutional mandate granted by Section 25. So the larger part of this part of my presentation is to illustrate that not only do we have an anti-property clause, we have a constitutional mandate, an instruction given to the state to do land reform in a constitutionally compatible fashion. But our own experience, I spent 4 months as an acting judge in the Land Claims Court, and I've spent probably 5 or 6 years as an advocate, working in part in land reform. My own experience is that land reform has been a collapse, it has been a failure. That is my own judgment. It has been an unmitigated disaster. On the side of restitution, no one knows the true figures, but they range between 4% and 7%. If you measure that against the target of the government in the Ready to Govern document that they published in 1992, that they intended to restitute 30% in the first 5 years of government, you can see that land reform has been a complete failure. My second observation is that land reform has been bedeviled by corruption. I have my own observations in watching how the land reform program unfolds. And I have many stories that I can share with the audience, those who want to know, that show that the process itself is bedeviled by corruption from within. So the landowners are corrupt, they are greedy, constantly demanding prices way above market value. The land claimants are equally corrupt, and the government bureaucrats are also corrupt. So no one is actually outside the net of corruption, right? So you are, and this, I can illustrate this with two examples. First of all of you know about the story of Malamala, right? It's a notorious story, and I was involved in the case for an amicus curiae. The Malamala Game Reserve is up for a land claim. The claim is found to be valid. The debate is about compensation. The valuers of the state range between 300 million to 700 million. Ultimately, the government pays R1 billion. Almost 300 million in excess of the highest valuation. And you must ask yourself, what happens then to the 300 million? Where does it actually go, right? Another case where came before me as an acting judge in the Land Claims Court, Section 42D, those of you who practice in land law will know Section 42D, those are administrative settlements. When a claim is not contested and the minister endorses it for payment. The underlying valuation are 40 million rands, but the offer made by the state is 89 million rands. So the question is, who's going to get the other 49 million rands, right? So you can multiply those stories over and over again. And you
Right. Ineke, I'm just going to stop there. I'll send you the link in respect of time. Yeah, so I thought I'll just stop there. Yeah, that's it, guys. And I don't know if anyone has a question before I make my concluding remarks.
I think it would be great if we could conclude. I'm waiting for everyone to type a question quickly into the chat for us.
But as maybe the questions are coming, guys, I kept on referring to boys, so you're gonna have to pardon me. I apologize. I am very woke, so I must apologize. I've never taught anyone else except at Michael House, and I deal with boys most of the time. My apologies to the girls out there who may watch this. I really apologize.
But Sid, do you think there's a difference in the gender between how they approach this topic? I'm just wondering. Men seem more focused on land, perhaps, or not.
You know, this whole thing started by. In fact, I blame Brenda from St. Anne's because she phoned me out of the blue asking me if I could just come and present this topic because she just needed help. So I went and I taught the girls that one particular morning. And the next day I received a phone call from, I can't remember whether it was Pam or saying that I hear you did this and you are coming to my school the next time. So this thing has just caught on like a wildfire. So to answer your question, yeah, I don't know if the girls, because they weren't used to me, they were engaging, but not as engaging. Perhaps it would be nice to go for the second time around and ask and just to observe more. They were a little bit more reserved. They did ask the questions, but they were not as engaging. But from who I teach at school, the boys do get aggressive, you know, and sometimes what I find is that I have to change their mindset because you can tell whatever they say is the comments or opinions that come from brides with their fathers or their uncles. You know, you can see it's not them who's speaking, but they're just saying the same thing that their dads or their uncles have said. But once you give them a full picture, you can see that their way of thinking begins to change. You know, that has been my my experience. I'm going to just to try and find one more question here.
Paula asks if you have more information about the Mala land claim.
I actually
for a
don't,
case study.
and I picked it up there as well. I actually don't. I didn't follow up on what happened, but that guy, the advocate, he's very accessible. I will probably try and contact him and just find out what actually happened. And I'll provide you guys with some information. You know, so he's always forthcoming with information. He's an amazing guy, and I think he's done very well in this space because he's very, very informed.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nika, I've got a question for Sibs.
Yeah.
May I ask it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sibs, you know, and so I've only really taught girls in the last 30 years, and I know that they are quite sensitive about the fact that in many of our traditional areas, women can't own land. What is your perspective of that?
Yeah, I think I'm learning as well when it comes to that. And I think it's not just a South African issue, it's a world issue. You know, when you hear that there's a golf course in America, which allowed women for the first time in the last 30, 40 years, it goes to show you how far behind we are as a world in reaching the so-called equal status with women. You know, so I think as South Africa, we definitely have a long way to go. And my opinion on the matter is that it doesn't matter who you are, everybody qualifies to own a piece of land. Doesn't matter what gender you belong to. And I think we have a long way in addressing that in this country. It's a patriarchy society, and we've got some way to go, but one day hopefully we'll achieve that. You hear very scary stories about our colleagues, what they get subjected to, especially the ladies' colleagues. If I can just share quickly, one of our colleagues was subjected to some sort of serious level of sexism in one of the roadblocks last week, you know, during the looting period. And she drove into a roadblock, and the next thing there were lots of comments about, don't be a woman, just please, man, you must know where your hazards are, that kind of stuff. So hopefully, Pam, you can see where I'm heading to with that answer. So we have somewhere in this country in reaching that status, and some races is better, but there are races where it really is almost at an impossible rate to achieve, you know. I hope I answered your question.
I believe so. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have a question for Sibs? Everyone seems to really have appreciated your presentation, though, and they think, you know, it's so good to discuss this and coming, you know, the way you've made it very clear and easily accessible. So thank you so much.
Guys, thank you very, very much. I appreciate the opportunity. And once again, if you need help, or if I could present to your school in some form, I'll be more than happy. Yeah, so just feel free to let me know.
Wow.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. So the people who actually listen, the quiz link is in the chat. So you have to actually download that now, or click on it now, please, and just save it. Otherwise, if you can't, if you're on a phone and if you're struggling, you can send me an email on the help@SAGTA and I'll send it to you. But it's really just for the people who've listened to Sibs' presentation, and they are the ones who are then able to take part and then win that book from the Advocate, which is fantastic.
Super.
So thank you. There it is again. There's the link to the quiz. Sibs, you can't take part. I'm sorry.
That's unfair, man. That's all right. Okay, thank you. Right, I'll stay online.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jackie. Do you want to quickly show us, well, I'll put it up on my screen if you want, and then you can quickly tell everyone about all your hard work.
Thanks so much. I'm sorry for the confusion at the beginning of the meeting. Ladies and gents, you would have received an email today via South African Geography website email address. We've actually worked to recalculate or reformulate the prep share folder. In the past, I had it per year, and we then found it a bit more challenging, and I had a lot of feedback from staff or colleagues that said, can we restructure this? So I have taken from 2017 to the current 2021 contribution, and I have now categorized it according to grades. So you'll see when you go onto the SAGTA page and you click on prep share, which is in the top left-hand corner, it will bring you out to the whole prep share folder. And then you've got them in grades, and Inika has just clicked on grade 12. And if I go to tests, to resources, the first one.
Okay, I'm going to go back.
I'm following your mouse and you're following my voice.
Where do I go back now? Okay, wait.
Okay, so resources. And then what I've done is I've categorized it according to the themes in the textbook, basically. So if you go to economic geography and you click on economic geography, you will then see all the information that you have for grade 12s under economic geography. And then you can click on those files. So you've got resources, you've got tests and exams, and then you've got assessments. What I've also done is I've created an Afrikaans file, and you'll see there's a grade 8 and 9 file. So if you can just go back to the first page. So that's the whole set of information that we have. Ladies and gents, please, what I've done is I've added the new 2021 stuff. So the people who contribute get it early. So I sent that link out already in February to the contributors. And now being July, it is now accessible to all our SAGTA members. So the SAGTA members now have access to all these resources. You'll see there's videos and all kinds of stuff in there. We are really lacking a lot of junior stuff. The grade 8 and 9 folder is a little bit thin. I'm going to specifically target those areas in grade for the end of this year. I will launch PrepShare 2022 in October, ready then for distribution to the contributors by February. So please, thank you so much to everybody who contributes, and please keep contributing. Nothing is sent away. If you have a difficulty opening files and stuff, please let me know, and any feedback is more than welcome. So please enjoy and use what there is. There's a really, really great stuff in these folders that you have access to. So thank you so much, Inika. That's all. Thanks, team.
Inika, can I say thank you? Jackie, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much. This is an awesome job, and it's really looking good now. Did you get your flowers?
Oh, yes, I've just got a message. I didn't know what it was, but I got a message saying my gift has arrived. So thank you so much.
Your gift has arrived. So it's to say on behalf of all of us, thank you very much. You do this in your time, and it's really looking wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. That's really the most awesome news, I think, for any teacher. There's over 3,000 resources. Thanks, Jackie. I think the teachers need that now. So hugely appreciate it. Thank you so much, Sips. And it's nearly past. We've made it in our hour. It's been a wonderful afternoon, and we've really all learned a lot. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining. We will email resources, answers to the quiz, and everything else next week, so that you have a few days to complete that and get it in. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Go, guys.
All right,
Cheers.
bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thanks, Sips. Thanks, Jax.
Only a pleasure, Heather. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Cheers. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Cheers.